TJ Pittenger of College Football Addiction. Texas and Oklahoma are off to the SEC, and I've heard so many members of that conference scoff within the last couple of days as those two have entered. What are the odds, especially as floundering as Oklahoma has been, as bad as Texas has been over the last 15 years, though they obviously were much improved in the college football playoff last year? For those two schools, can they kick it in a conference that is a very big objective step above the Big 12?
Yeah, I want to say no, but then I'm reminded that Missouri went in and made it to Atlanta their first year.
Immediately. 2 years
yeah. Oh, yeah. In the SEC. And, Texas A&M obviously has not had the same level of success since they've been there. But, the immediate thought was like, well, they'll never be able to do it week in and week out. And then I remember Missouri, a few plays away from a national championship, when they were playing in Atlanta. So now you're gone with divisions. I don't know. So I look at Texas as certainly being a little bit more ready to compete this year than Oklahoma. But I do think long term, like, how do you stack these programs up? And it's so hard because of the week to week to week. But I think that I saw Jade Crane make this point this week, and he does a great job. But it isn't so much the big matchups against Alabama or Georgia or LSU. Like, obviously they're going to be up and ready for those, but it is the weird game against Auburn in the middle of November that you're just
Mississippi State in Starkville, where you're like, oh, okay,
stuff like that. Having to play A&M, right? They can get anybody going to Williams-Brice, going down to the Swamp, right? Florida's been bad recently, but that's not an easy place to play, and so it is. It's the week in and week out of that. That said, I look at Texas in like tier 2, Texas and Oklahoma in like tier 2 of the SEC. There is no doubt that they've got to do some things to shore some things up there. They can't have the random off game that you saw Texas barely escape Manhattan, and you've seen Oklahoma lose games they shouldn't.
Texas and Houston last year,
yeah, they could have had 4 losses, and then you would have had all the drama at the end. But but when I look at the SEC, I mean, it is Alabama and it is Georgia above everyone else, right? And then it's the tier of LSU, Florida when they're doing well. This year, Ole Miss and Missouri are in there. I put Texas, Oklahoma in that. Like, I think they're head and shoulders better than some of those teams we mentioned. Mississippi State, South Carolina. Arkansas, I think they're both above A&M. I think they're both above Missouri on any given year. Now, Missouri this year should be pretty good. But I think, they're better than Arkansas. Obviously, everybody's better than Vandy. They're better than most of the teams out there. And so I have them in that tier 2. What's that mean, though? It means one year they're going to go 10-2, and the next year they're going to go 8-4 because they're going to run it. So, there's not going to be a lot of 11-1s anymore for Texas, Oklahoma. I don't see them going 12-0 ever because you are going to have to play some of those tougher teams. Even this year, Florida is so bad, and you still have to play a Florida team that's better than all those teams you struggled with last year, right? They're better than Kansas State. They're better than So, I think that's what makes it tough. But I do still have them kind of tier 2. I think they're a perennial 8-4 to 10-2 team, both of them every year in the SEC, which 8-4 in the SEC, I don't know if that's going to cut it with their expectations. 10-2 certainly is going to get you in the playoff almost every time if you're Texas or Oklahoma with your brand. And then if you can find a way to just have one loss in the regular season, you're probably in Atlanta playing for the championship. So I expect them to do fairly well. I don't expect a lot of 7-5s or worse out of those two teams.
Now, if you're Oklahoma and you go 6-7 in the Big 12 and year one under Brent Venables, that's bad. Like, they really aren't used to the below 500 thing. And I'm going to leave them off the table for a bit, even in the tier 2. I just don't know yet until Venables proves something in a much tougher SEC. For Texas, TJ, can we forget? Why has everybody forgotten just how consistently bad they were for over a decade? They stunk going from head coach to head coach, and they finally found in Steve Sarkisian success, but it hasn't been consistent yet. Why are we all already buying Texas?
Because of 1 year, because of recency bias in one season, where they also beat the SEC's bell cow, right? Or at least last decade's bell cow. You can argue Georgia's kind of taken that over, and that's fine. Whichever way you want to go with that is fine with me. But because of 1 year, right? What you just mentioned, Venables' six win season 2 years ago. The year before that, Sarkisian had a below 5. Like, they were bad. Like, they were terrible. And nobody mentions that. Nobody ever brings that up. And you're exactly right. Like, Texas has been very up and down. We all all remember the we're back. And yeah, they've had one really, really good year, but now it's like the put up or shut up year, right? Georgia comes to town. You play Oklahoma, who you still can't find a way to beat. Even in the year you go to the playoff, you couldn't beat them. Yeah. And so how do you deal with that, right? Like, how does Texas deal with all of that happening? And then they got to go to A&M at the end of the year. Like, yeah, I think Texas. I picked every single game in the SEC this year, and I picked A&M to win that game. I just think there's a lot on it. I think, let's go, man. So I don't know. I think that I think 1 year has removed the last 20 years of mid that we remember about Texas. And recency bias is a very real thing. I get that a ton. Caitlin Clark lost the national championship and everybody was calling her like come on, you forget about all the good, so anyway, it's the same thing in this. 1 year removed all of our remembrance of how mid they've been. And I won't be surprised at all if they're 8-4, 9-3 this year. Let's just see what they do. Now they do get the benefit of going on the road to Michigan early in the year. So the weather's not a big deal, but Michigan also sending 10 guys to the NFL. But I mean, don't be surprised if Michigan comes out and wins that game in the big house, and they start out 1-1 and then have to play Oklahoma and Georgia and A&M and all these other SEC teams. I think they're in for a bit of a shock when they get there.
Before we go into Utah having a new football coach, which is just a wild thing to see, I got the ESPN push notification. I was like, oh, what? Want to put the bow on for the Big 12. You know what, TJ, I'll take the reins for a second here. For the Big 12, losing Texas and Oklahoma at the top of the conference is obviously something you did not want. Bob Bowles, we didn't want. You almost lost him to the Pac-12 a bunch of years ago, and that would have been a true mess.
Hilarious.
Your two most valuable schools walked out. However, at this point, competition becomes more open. Parity does not always equate to money in college football, but it does equate to a viewing experience that is going to be much more entertaining for fans that watched Oklahoma go to Arlington year in and year out as an automatic Big 12 champion and off to the college football playoff. That is gone. Texas, the annoying fan base, that is gone. And the money that we keep screaming about in college athletics is money that I will never see. I paid rent last month on $0 from the school that I root for. What I am here for is the invested interest in college football being entertaining. And that in the Big 12 is still at a high level. Coming up, Utah has a new football coach. What? On Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is where I go to bet a little bit of money on MLB baseball. And Major League Baseball? Yep, 100%. Because I can go say today, hey, look, the Texas Rangers are pretty bad right now. I can bet against them. So when they win, I'm happy because I'm a fan. And when they lose, I make money. And you're like, oh, well, that's not a very good way to do it. You're a fake fan. I'm making money. FanDuel.com/locked on to start making the most out of your summer. All customers get a boost or a bonus daily. That is right. There is something for everyone, every day, all summer long at FanDuel. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Go there today, bet against the Texas Rangers. You will probably win money at FanDuel.com/locked on.